Look, Joe, as chairman of the prize committee, it's up to me to determine what the first prize is going to be. I am not being arbitrary. I investigated all of them very carefully before I... Yes, I checked them out, too. I know he's your brother-in-law. Okay. Get him to loan you one and take it over to the lobby. I'll meet you there in a half hour. So I went at this thing just as if I were trying to decide which car I'd buy. I drove all the cars. I even took notes.
And that makes you an expert?
You don't have to be an expert. Just compare a few facts about the Chrysler 300 and the Grand Prix and use your eyes.
Well, if you used your eyes, you'd see one thing. This Pontiac has distinction.
Distinction? You're kidding. Let me straighten you out about distinction, if I can find something. Here, now look at these two views. The one at the top is a Pontiac. The one at the bottom is a Chevrolet, costing $500 less. Now, can you honestly show me where there's $500 of extra distinction in the Pontiac?
Well, maybe not from that angle. But when you see that split grille in front, you know it's a Pontiac, not a Chevy. That's distinction.
Ah, but distinctly which Pontiac? Is it the full-size medium Prix or the intermediate-size low-price Pontiac Tempest? Pontiac's grille doesn't spell out size and price distinction very well. And does that Pontiac grille make it clear that it's a 65 Pontiac? Or is it so similar to the 64 and 63 grilles that many people won't be able to make the distinction? Now, if it's real distinction you're looking for, this Chrysler 300 has it. Nothing borrowed from cheaper cars. The styling is so rich looking that it couldn't belong to anything less than a full-size medium to high-price car. The Chrysler nameplate has never been on anything else but. And there's no carryover styling from previous years. Every bit of it is so fresh and new that no one could mistake it for anything but a 65. Now, that's what I call distinction. And there's plenty of extra distinction in the 300's extra length. Why, it's over 3.5 inches longer than the Grand Prix.
All right, but don't forget Pontiac's got that Fisher body quality.
Come on now. Have you compared the workmanship you get on the 300 with what you have to settle for on the Grand Prix? Look back on the rear fenders. The Chrysler 300 rear fender is smooth, finished looking. On the Pontiac Grand Prix, big, ugly seams in the fender. The kind of workmanship you'd expect in a much cheaper car, but not in this price class. That's just one example. There are these seams under the Pontiac rear window that you won't find in Chrysler. And there are other examples that you can see. So, what can you figure about Pontiac workmanship in places you can't see? Take this Pontiac engine and the rest of the drivetrain. All pretty expensive precision machinery, you know. And in Pontiac, it's warranted for only 2 years or 24,000 miles. In the Chrysler, those same engine and drivetrain components are covered for 5 years or 50,000 miles. And even the second and third owners can get in on that warranty protection. To me, that's pretty convincing proof that Chrysler has quality craftsmanship all the way through. Notice the extra luxury in this Chrysler? Like those dual rear pillar lights. The Grand Prix doesn't have them. Look at the door handles. Chrysler 300s are unified, neater than those on the Grand Prix. Notice the Chrysler's control knobs are all clearly marked and identified. Pontiac doesn't even bother. Chrysler's instrument panel includes a trip odometer, so you can keep track of miles on trips. Pontiac doesn't have one. How about this, Joe? Chrysler's got a handy slide-out drawer that includes dual ashtrays, a lighter, coin holder, and a compartment for sunglasses or cigarettes. And it's lighted, too. You won't find that in a Grand Prix. Or this either. A glove box with a pull-out map tray, tissue dispenser, and cup holders on the lid. These are the kind of extras that go with owning a luxury car.
Maybe so, but you're forgetting the center console. That's standard on the Grand Prix. How about that?
If you like consoles, you can get one on this Chrysler 300. It's extra cost, but you do have your choice of bucket seats with or without a console in the 300. But to me, this particular 300 front compartment is just right. With the center armrest folded down, I get real bucket seat armchair driving comfort. And if I want to see the third person up front, I just flip the armrest up. Now, if you want to seat 3 in the front compartment of the Grand Prix, You have to order the car with a bench-type front seat, which means giving up your center console and your bucket seat.
Oh, didn't know that.
And that's not all the advantages you get with this 300. Notice the seat material. Deeply pleated and heavily textured. That means extra air circulation. The Grand Prix has shallow pleats, less texture so they can get a bit uncomfortable on a hot day. The 300 gives you the luxury appearance of chrome trim on the seats. That's one more reason this car looks like class. And for a capper, Joe, the 300 passenger seat reclines. You can't get that on a Grand Prix. I can even get this 300 equipped with headrests for the front seats.
Larry, could we talk about something else? Maybe the back seat?
Okay. Here's a point. The Chrysler 300 rear seat has nearly 64 inches of hip room, enough to seat 3 adults comfortably. But in the Grand Prix rear seat, the hip room is only 55.5 inches. That's over 8 inches narrower than the 300, so it only seats 2 adults in any kind of comfort. What that all boils down to is this. The Grand Prix with bucket seats is only a 4-passenger car, while the Chrysler 300 is a full 6-passenger car, buckets and all.
Okay. So I agree that this Chrysler 300 has a good exterior story, an impressive quality story, and even a great interior story compared to the Grand Prix. But, is that all it's got to sell?
I know you must have heard about Chrysler torsion air suspension. Famous torsion bars up front, special leaf springs in back.
Yeah, but is it as good as Pontiac wide track?
Well, I'm no test driver. And when I drove them, both cars seemed to handle very well on good roads. But on the bad roads and over bumps, I could tell that Chrysler's torsion air had more control. It felt more sure-footed and solid than the Grand Prix. I think some of Chrysler's solid feel is due to its modern unibody construction. A solid, heavier, all welded into one-piece structure that you don't get on Pontiac. Pontiac's body and frame are built separately, then bolted together so it can't be as rigid or feel as solid. Of course, both cars can deliver some pretty solid performance. They both got big, powerful engines. That means you better have big brakes to control all that performance. And the Chrysler 300's got them. Better than 263 square inches of brake lining, which is a whopping 40% more than Pontiac's Grand Prix. Naturally, the Chrysler 300 has big tires to go with those big brakes. 855 by 14s. Notice what the Grand Prix is wearing? 825 by 14 tires. Add it all up, Joe, and you see why the Chrysler 300 deserves its reputation of being a great road car and a first prize car in every way.
Okay, Larry, but don't forget one thing. A Pontiac would cost us a lot less than that 300.
Just check the difference in suggested retail price on two-door hardtops, Joe. The Chrysler 300 is only $53 more than the Grand Prix. That's all it takes to move up to Chrysler 65.
Okay, Larry, I'll concede. But my brother-in-law is going to be mighty disappointed. You know, you wouldn't make a bad car salesman yourself. A Chrysler salesman, naturally.